viewers. Apparently, Horseshoe Curve Service 509 is impossible. Well, I'm going to attest that it's not. Now, we're approaching Glitzen now, so we're coming up to the summit. We're still climbing a 1.1% grade for the moment. We have got rather a long train on the back with a lot of tons. We have 3 locomotives at the front and 1 at the rear. And people say it's impossible because you run away. We're going to be heading down at track 1, which is also known as the slide. Ominous, huh? So, where do I think people go wrong when they try and do this themselves? I think that's relatively simple. People get a little fixated on the speed limit. By that I mean they try to drive at the speed limit. And I think that comes from the fact that people think trains are like cars. And in a car, most of the time, you drive at the speed limit. If you're behaving yourself. And you might consider slowing down when the conditions warrant it, such as a really wet road or snow or something like that. Well, I'm going to tell you trains are the same. You drive to the conditions. Now you'll notice we've started to pick up. We've come over the crest. I am now powering off. So the back of my train is still very much coming up the hill. But the front's over the top now, and we've started our descent. I'm just waiting the 10 seconds before I go into dynamic brake setup. Now, in reality, I wouldn't have actually powered off yet, because in a real train, I would have had to power off after we get it well and truly over the crest with most of our train, or we would stop. So let's just get into setup now, and we'll leave that as it is for the moment, and next we just wait. So can dynamic brakes actually hold this train on this hill? No. But that's not really a problem, as long as you keep your speed manageable. So we're still coming up on the back. So we're coming towards the end of this tunnel. Probably about half our train is now over the crest. So you'll see that we'll start picking up speed shortly. And once I see the speed starting to go up, I will get us up to the highest level of dynamics relatively quickly. And you can see the HUD's just starting to creep up now. I normally drive without the HUD, so this can actually be a little harder to detect when you don't have the HUD, but I thought I'd have it on for this. And we're creeping a little bit. The bit that I'm watching is where it's drawing the current speed as an arc. There we go, we've just come up to 16 mile an hour. Alright, so it's time to start bringing in our dynamics. I'm going to take it up to 4, and we'll just let that settle a moment, and we'll see how that goes. It won't be enough, because now we've come into the 2.1% gradient. 2.4 now. You can see our creeping has slowed down a lot. Now, as the rest of our train comes over the crest, which probably happening, if not now, it'll be very soon, and joins us on the downhill run, gravity will start to take over very quickly. Now, for this tutorial, obviously I'm not going to run all the way down the hill. We don't need to. I just want to show you what to do. And besides, no one watches long tutorials on YouTube. About 8 minutes is the go. After that, you tend to lose viewership. Which isn't that surprising, really. We all lead busy lives. I have to admit I'm a bit the same. Alright, we can see our speed starting to creep up again now. So, on the dynamics front, we're going to ramp this up. We're going to go all the way up to the maximum of dynamics that we've got. And you'll see that our speed will still creep up. So right now we're producing the maximum tractive effort with dynamics. But you can see we're still speeding up. Now, is this really a problem? No. Because what we're going to do, you'll notice I'm using the rail driver here, but we can watch the brake handle. We're going to start with about 30%, and we're going to see how that goes. So that's put 14 pounds into the brake cylinders. Braking on the Horseshoe curve trains is, like all of the simulated trains, slightly unrealistic, so a real driver would probably see a different practice here. You can see our speed's still going up. So let's take it up a little bit more. Let's go up to about 45. There we go. Let's see how that goes. Because at a point in time, there'll be enough brake in the brake cylinders to start bringing our speed down. But you want to make small adjustments. And this will be cyclical. Because what you'll want to do is apply enough brake to start bringing your speed back down again, and bring that speed right back to about 10 mile an hour. And when you get down to 10 mile an hour, then you release the brakes and give them at least 6 minutes or so to charge up again before you apply again. Now, the game doesn't actually penalise you if you apply too much. Now, I'm going to give this a bit more because we're still very slowly creeping up. So I'm going to take us up to about 65 odd. There we go. 67 will do fine. The rail driver is not the most exact thing in the world. You can see our brake cylinder pressure is now up to 36 pounds. And you can see that's having an effect. So you can already see our speed starting to come off. So I will let this cycle back down to about 10 mile an hour. And at 10 mile an hour, I'm going to release the brakes completely. Now, you want to let it come down that far, just to emphasize that. You really do need to let it come all the way back down to a low speed, because you're going to have to release the brakes and keep them released for quite a while. Ideally, about 6 minutes to charge up the rear. Doesn't always work out that way, obviously. And the other thing you want to watch is don't keep your loco braking too hard. So I'm actually going to bail off the loco brakes now. You'll see the brake cylinder pressure go back to 0. And the reason I do that is once you start getting down to the lower speeds and you've got braking applied, your dynamics become less effective. All right, so we're down to 7 mile an hour now. I'm going to release the brakes. It's quite possible we'll actually come to a stop before these brakes release. And that's fine. It doesn't matter. And we'll just let this sit. Now, in a real train, our dynamics at this point would probably have cut out. But the simulator doesn't work that way. Dynamics really don't work below 5 mile an hour. Yeah, we're starting to creep up again now, so the brakes are starting to come off throughout the train. We can see we're up to 78 on the back, which is about as good as it gets in Horseshoe Curve in the current release. That's okay. Ideally, it would go back up to 89, but the brakes do actually release at about 60 pounds, 65 pounds in the simulator, so it'll do the job. Now, I'll let this come back up to about 15, and then I'll start putting some braking back on again. So, this is called the Sawtooth Method, where you let your speed increase and you bring yourself back under control, bring your speed right down, keep the brake application for as long as you can so it's actually worth doing it. Because remember, in a real train, you've probably only got 3 heavy applications that you can actually make. After that, depending on the train, if it's a modern one, you've got 1 more if you go to emergency. That's a last-ditch thing. If you're running away, emergency saves the day. But if you try and apply the brakes on a real air brake train with the Westinghouse or Webco system, and you don't let it fully recharge, you're asking for trouble, because you're just going to run out of air. You've probably heard terms like bleeding off the air or pissing away the air. That's what they mean. Now, the simulator doesn't really work that way, fortunately, and even if we do run away, we're not going to die. reality would be a little different, unfortunately. So we're certainly coming back up in speed now. We're coming back up to 10 mile an hour almost. And you'll see this has an effect quite quickly. So our dynamic brakes have become fully effective again. You can see we're producing the maximum, well, not producing the maximum power, we're producing the maximum braking effort right now of 86 kilopounds. It's just bouncing around a little bit. Now you could, if you wanted to, do a minimum reduction at this point. And on a 1.8% gradient, it might actually hold your speed. It's even slowing us down at the moment. But of course, this does get a little bit steeper. So this minimum reduction, you can quite safely keep this on with the dynamics going. You just got to watch your speed. If you come down too low, you're going to have to release them again. Now, even taking a minimum reduction, you're still going to be having quite a long charge-up time. Because remember, it's got to propagate through the whole train. So at the moment, the brakes probably aren't even on in the back cars yet. And up here in the front, we're very much on. So we're starting to creep up again now, which is fine. But this is about all there is to it, basically. So just keep sawtoothing. Remember to give it time to recharge. So watch the rear train pressure when you release, and it gets up as high as it's going to. So ideally, the rear would match the brake pipe pressure. The BP and the rear should be the same after you release before you apply again. In the Horseshoe trains in this version, it doesn't usually work that way. Usually 78 or 79 is probably as good as you're going to get, unless you wait a really long time. Alright, this is where I'm going to leave this. And when this gets down to about 5 mile an hour or so, I'd release it again and then let it creep up again and then apply again, and so on as we make our way down the hill. Naturally, it can take a while. Be patient, be safe. And thanks for watching. If you've got any comments, chuck them below. See you later.